Imagine a quiet, peaceful little town. The kind of place you move to for a slower pace, for calm amongst the citrus groves and farms of Florida. Now, picture that tranquility just completely shattered. Not by a hurricane or some natural disaster, but by something much more sinister. A shocking series of mysterious illnesses, then ultimately death. All seemingly stemming from, a petty conflict with a neighbor. Today we're going to share a truly captivating and frankly chilling story. It unravels this whole web of slow, deliberate poisoning, an incredibly intelligent perpetrator, and the painstaking, almost impossibly clever investigation it took to bring them to justice.
Yeah, this deep dive explores a case people often call the evil neighbor case, and it really offers some profound insights into human nature and maybe the darker side of intellect too. Our mission today is basically to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge from this incredible real-life mystery for you.
Okay, so let's set the scene. We're going back to 1988 in Alturas, Florida. A small, quiet, pretty rural town, only about 4,000 residents, surrounded by farms, lakes, those Florida citrus groves. It was exactly the kind of place people moved to for peace and quiet, where not much happened. But that year, this tranquil setting got a new addition, a vibrant and, let's be honest, quite noisy addition. The Carr family. This is a large, blended family. Peggy Carr and Peggy Carr had recently married. They had several children, even grandchildren, living on the same property. Their home was just a hub of activity, especially the boys, Duwan and Travis. They were close in age, full of energy, loved riding ATVs, playing loud music, constantly creating this lively, often noisy atmosphere.
And it's really striking, isn't it, how that peaceful expectation of a rural town just sharply contrasted with the reality of this large, boisterous family, this seemingly innocent clash of lifestyles. It immediately sets the stage for something much darker, especially when you remember their immediate neighbors were a childless, middle-aged couple, people who really valued their quiet solitude, kept to themselves.
Right. And the friction, it started almost immediately. The car's constant noise became a major annoyance for those quiet neighbors. But it wasn't just the noise exactly. The tension really ramped up when Peggy Carr planned to convert his garage into another living space. The neighbors actively tried to stop him. They insisted he get proper building permits, under the Florida building code. It was a clear signal. They did not want more people, and definitely not more noise.
That kind of active resistance over something like a building permit, it really highlights how quickly these minor disputes can escalate, right? Especially when there's that underlying resentment, it becomes more than just a nuisance.
Absolutely. And then, about 4 months after that whole building permit fight, things took an incredibly ominous turn. A chilling typewritten letter arrived, addressed to Peggy Carr, and it was a death threat, demanding the entire Carr family leave Florida within 2 weeks, or, and this is a direct quote, "You will all die." This is not a joke, but Peggy, maybe trying to avoid more conflict, or just not grasping how serious it was, he dismissed it, called it a childish prank, didn't take it seriously at all.
And that dismissal is so telling, isn't it? It just shows how easily real danger can be misjudged when it first shows up, especially when it feels so out of place. It's almost like a defense mechanism, maybe, to downplay threats that don't fit our view of the world.
It really is. You almost want to believe it's not real. And then, about a month after that letter, another direct confrontation happened. The female neighbor angrily confronted the Carr boys about their loud music again. Peggy defended her sons, and it turned into a shouting match. As Peggy turned to walk away, the neighbor delivered this really ominous warning. "You and your family won't get away with this. This isn't over."
Chilling. Just chill.
Yeah. And what followed was this strange, quiet period. About 2 to 3 weeks of apparent calm. But then, October 23, 1988, Peggy Carr, who worked at a local restaurant, started feeling strange, experiencing these weird symptoms. They were deeply distressing. Chest pain, leg pain, tingling sensations, just this general feeling of being really unwell. Her daughter, Sissy, worked at the same restaurant, and she noticed how pale and weak her mother looked. There happened to be a doctor there. It's a bit unclear if they were a customer or called in, but they thought maybe it was just exhaustion. Told her to rest. So Sissy, worried, took her mother home.
Okay, so initial thought is exhaustion.
Yep.
Seems reasonable, maybe.
Yeah, but Peggy's condition got dramatically worse after resting. Much worse. Her husband, Pat, called his sister, who was a nurse. She checked Peggy, found high blood pressure, but nothing else seemed immediately alarming. But by 9 p.m. that same evening, Sissy got home from work and found Peggy in a far, far worse state. Like 10 times worse than earlier. She could barely speak, couldn't really open her eyes, extremely pale.
Yeah.
They rushed her straight to the hospital.
And that incredibly rapid deterioration, defying the initial medical guess, That's exactly what makes cases like this so challenging for doctors. When symptoms escalate that fast and don't fit the usual patterns, you have to start thinking outside the box.
Definitely. At the hospital, Peggy described these excruciating burning sensations in her hands and feet, hot, painful tingling in her arms and legs. Doctors were baffled. Initial tests, comprehensive stuff, blood work, x-rays showed nothing unusual. Nothing. 3 different doctors consulted on her case. And because the symptoms were so strange, so untraceable, they actually considered a psychiatric evaluation.
Which is standard protocol sometimes when you can't find a physical cause, but still.
Yeah. After 3 days, Peggy seemed to improve slightly, just a little bit. She was discharged on October 27, 1988, with strict orders to rest. But the very next day, another alarm bell. Peggy's son Duwan and Peggy's son Travis started developing similar symptoms. Initially less severe, maybe, but still. Tingling, burning in their hands and feet, fever.
Ah, okay, that pattern. Multiple family members, similar symptoms right after each other. That's a massive red flag. It shifts everything from maybe an individual illness to thinking about a shared exposure, something in the environment. And it strongly suggests something. Well, something deliberate, not just a random infection.
Exactly. And Peggy's health just plummeted again. Severely weaker, barely able to open her eyes. Peggy made the tough call, rushed Peggy, Duwan, and Travis all back to the hospital. This time, doctors quickly rule out infectious diseases. No signs of viruses. Their suspicion turned sharply towards poisoning, and the focus zeroed in on one specific substance: thallium.
Thallium. That is incredibly nasty stuff. It's insidious. As little as 1 gram can kill you. And what makes it so terrifying is how it works. It systematically attacks your body, the nervous system, muscles. It leads to muscle atrophy, this profound weakness. Horrible gastrointestinal problems too. Nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. And in severe cases, it progresses to seizures, paralysis, even paralysis of the muscles you need to speak. It's just a slow, agonizing process.
It sounds horrific. And the tests confirmed it. Specialized urine tests showed thallium. Peggy's levels were astronomical, 20,000 times the normal amount.
20,000 times. Unbelievable.
Yeah. The boys' levels were also significantly elevated, enough to cause really severe harm. The doctors had to tell the family. They were shocked, obviously. They told them it was poisoning, indicated foul play. And Peggy, tragically, she couldn't speak anymore because of the muscle paralysis. She used sign language. She knew it because her father was deaf. And she just expressed this utter disbelief, said she couldn't imagine who would want to hurt her or her family like that.
Just devastating to be trapped like that, knowing you've been poisoned.
It's unimaginable. Peggy's condition just got worse and worse. She ended up on a ventilator, intubated, suffered multiple cardiac arrests. Her life was just hanging by a thread. Duwan and Travis also continued to decline. These were active kids, American football players. They experienced severe muscle atrophy. Both lost around 80 pounds. That's nearly 30 kilograms of muscle mass.
80 pounds. For young athletes, that's catastrophic.
Absolutely devastating. After 3 long months in the hospital, Travis and Duwan were finally discharged. But they needed wheelchairs, extensive physical therapy, just to try and regain some strength. Peggy, though, she remained in a deep coma. No signs of recovery. On March 3, 1989, 6 agonizing months after she first got sick, the Carr family made that heartbreaking decision. They removed Peggy from life support. She died that day.
Such a profound tragedy. It just highlights the devastating, lasting impact of an attack like this. It's not just the victim who suffers, it's the whole family enduring that pain. It leaves a scar.
And with Peggy's death, the case officially became a murder investigation. Police, they initially suspected Peggy Carr, standard procedure sometimes. They looked into theories, marital problems, infidelity, maybe financial motives, since they'd married relatively recently. But then Peggy himself tested positive for thallium. Lower levels, yes, but he was definitely a victim too.
Okay, so that rules him out pretty clearly.
Right. And it led investigators to a critical conclusion. The poison must have been introduced into the household somehow, in a way that could hit multiple family members. It pointed toward an intent to harm all of them.
A targeted attack on the whole family.
Exactly. So police launched this massive search of the Carr home. Collected over 400 items, everything you can think of: pickle jars, ice cubes, food from the fridge, hair products, cleaning supplies, even soft drink bottles. Everything went to the lab. And the lab results were decisive. 8 glass bottles of Coca-Cola were contaminated with thallium.
Coca-Cola bottles?
Yeah. Peggy had drunk 4 of them. Travis and Duwan had 2 each. Pei had drunk 1. And Pei told investigators something really crucial then. He said his family rarely drank Coca-Cola. They were loyal Pepsi fans.
Okay, that's weird.
Totally. He hadn't bought this specific pack of Coke bottles. which immediately suggested someone else had brought those poisoned drinks into their home. And when they looked closer at the Coke bottles, there was a telltale sign. The caps were twisted, looked like they'd been tampered with, like they'd been opened, poisoned, and then carefully resealed.
Wow. Okay, that detail speaks volumes, doesn't it, about the perpetrator's planning?
Yeah.
Meticulous.
Yeah.
And specific knowledge, too. Knowing how to introduce the poison discreetly like that, it shows calculation, premeditation, chillingly so.
Totally chilling. So with these new leads, police went back to the neighbors, George and Diane Trepal, the very couple the Carrs had all the conflict with over the noise, the building permit. When they were questioned, Diane seemed genuinely shocked. But George, his behavior was suspicious. He avoided eye contact. And he ambiguously suggested, sort of vaguely, that the perpetrator might be someone who wanted the Carr family to move away.
That's not exactly a normal reaction, is it? Trying to deflect like that.
No, it was a huge red flag for the investigators.
Yeah, it's fascinating how his attempt to shift suspicion, especially combined with his unique background, actually made him the prime suspect.
And Peggy Carr confirmed it for the police. He said the Trepals were the only neighbors he'd had significant problems with, and he gave them that mysterious death threat letter, which focused the investigation squarely on George Trepal and George Trepal's background. Well, it started to paint a really disturbing picture. He was 39 years old, born in New York City, son of a police officer and a teacher, recognized for being highly intelligent from a young age.
Okay, smart guy.
Very. He studied chemistry for 2 years at Clemson University, graduated in 72, then got a psychology degree too, so degrees in both chemistry and psychology. He married Diane, who also had a PhD. And both of them, they were members of Mensa, the high IQ society, that group for people with IQs in the top 2%, 132 or higher.
Right, Mensa. Okay.
George and Diane were apparently very proud of being Mensa members. They were key in starting a new chapter in Central Florida. They organized puzzle events, mystery dinner nights for the members, that kind of thing. And here's where it gets really interesting and kind of creepy. George was once asked to design a murder mystery scenario for a Mensa weekend event, and he meticulously studied police manuals to make his fictional crime as realistic and complex as possible.
Wow, okay, so he's literally practicing how to plan complex crimes.
Pretty much. He even picked up this disturbing nickname among some people, the real-life Walter White, from Breaking Bad, the chemistry teacher turned drug lord.
That is quite a nickname, and quite a confluence of skills and interests. The chemistry background gives him the technical know-how for poison, the psychology degree, maybe some insight into manipulation, and then the fascination with crafting realistic murder mysteries. It's a chilling combination. It suggests a mind that could absolutely weaponize its intelligence.
And his past wasn't clean either. There were several really alarming incidents before any of this with the Carrs. Like during college, he apparently coated his dorm room doorknob with a hallucinogenic chemical, just to stop people coming in uninvited. It would absorb through the skin.
Seriously? That's wow.
Yeah, and he did these disturbing experiments, picking up hitchhikers, giving them LSD without them knowing, watching their reactions, then just abandoning them somewhere.
That's predatory and incredibly dangerous.
Absolutely. And maybe most alarmingly, he operated a huge illegal amphetamine lab, made something like $7 million. It was the largest meth lab found in Florida at that time.
$7 million, and he got caught.
He got caught. But despite the scale of it, he only served 3 years in prison.
3 years for running the biggest lab in the state. That seems lenient.
It does. So you have this picture of George Trepal emerging, highly intelligent, knowledgeable about chemistry and poisons, interested in complex crimes, and with a history of dangerous, illegal behavior. But despite all this strong circumstantial evidence, the police still lack that crucial, irrefutable physical proof needed to arrest him for Peggy Carr's murder.
Right. Circumstantial evidence is one thing, but getting a conviction, especially for murder, you need something solid, something directly linking him.
So they launched this covert operation, codenamed Operation Pale Horse.
Pale Horse, like the Agatha Christie novel.
Exactly like the Agatha Christie novel, which significantly they found a copy of in George's home. And that novel famously details a murder using thallium poisoning.
Okay, the irony is just layers upon layers here.
It really is. So April 1989, an undercover officer, Susan Gorick, approaches George. She poses as Cherry Gwen, a new Mensa member, just moved to the area, divorcing an abusive husband, looking for a fresh start, new friends, the whole story. George, maybe flattered, maybe intrigued, quickly invited her to the next Mensa mystery murder weekend.
He took the bait.
He did. And Susan skillfully started building this trusting relationship with him. She later noted he seemed to find her, like, lively, cheerful personality, a refreshing change from his more academic wife, Diane. During her visits to George's home, Susan made some critical observations, really important stuff. She noticed his homemade winemaking setup, and crucially, a bottle capper.
A bottle capper, like you'd need to reseal those Coke bottles.
Exactly. It matched the theory perfectly.
Yeah.
And then she spotted it, a copy of Agatha Christie's The Pale Horse, the book about thallium poisoning.
Wow, those details are huge. The tool, the bottle capper, and the blueprint, the novel, it connects George directly to the method of the poisoning and shows he had specific knowledge, or at least inspiration. It basically lays out his thinking for the police.
And then came the Mensa mystery murder weekend, George's carefully crafted murder scenario. It was chillingly similar to the Carr family poisoning. The narrative he wrote included lines like this: voodoo priests believe they can be killed by psychic power, but they never realize they could be poisoned as well. And when death threats appear on your doorstep, prudent people discard all food and are wary of everything they put into their mouths. In this bit, it is almost impossible for anyone to die of magic. Most things left on doorsteps are merely a way for neighbors to say, "I don't like you, move away."
Oh my God. He's basically reenacting his crime as a game that is deeply unsettling. It speaks to this profound intellectual arrogance, maybe, or some twisted satisfaction in his own cleverness, like he's daring someone to figure it out. It's a really key psychological insight into his mindset, I think.
Absolutely. So Susan, the undercover officer, she continued her work, maintained this close friendship with George, carefully gathering information, all the while being acutely aware of his high IQ and his dangerous past. She had to be so careful not to raise suspicion. She kept relaying everything back to the task force. Then, in December 1989, George and Diane announced they were moving. Susan saw her chance. Seizing the opportunity, she offered to rent their old house, and George, trusting Sherry, agreed. He inadvertently gave the police unlimited access to the crime scene without needing a warrant.
Perfect. A brilliant move by the undercover officer.
Totally. The moment Susan officially moved in, forensic teams and the FBI just swarmed the house. And they found it. They discovered a hidden room. It contained a bed with chains attached.
Chains. Okay, that's dark.
Yeah. And, crucially, in that hidden area, they found a bottle containing thallium.
Bingo. Physical evidence.
The final piece. Police immediately converged on George's new home in Sebring, Florida, to arrest him. Diane tried to block their entry, apparently outraged. Inside, police found George standing on the stairs, bizarrely dressed in women's underwear.
Wow. Okay, just wow. The discovery of the thallium, that hidden room with restraints, it reveals a level of depravity and premeditation that goes way beyond a simple neighbor dispute. It really underscores the extreme danger this man posed. This wasn't just a reaction, it seems like a deeply ingrained pattern of disturbing behavior.
And at George's new home, they found even more incriminating evidence. Numerous books on poisons and chemistry. A pamphlet called Chemistry for the Complete Idiot, a practical guide to all chemists. A 3-ring binder labeled General Poison Guide, containing articles on detecting poison in human organs. The death by poison synopsis.
This library sounds like a murderer's toolkit.
Pretty much.
Huh.
And they found another secret room, similar to the first, bed with chains. But this one ominously lacked a doorknob on the inside.
That's terrifying. Just terrifying.
Yeah. So with this overwhelming evidence, George Trepal was charged in January 1991. 15 criminal counts. First-degree murder for Peggy Carr, 6 counts of attempted murder for the others, 7 counts of poisoning, 1 count of product tampering. Diane, his wife, wasn't charged. And she vehemently defended George, maintained his innocence the whole time. Apparently, George's own defense team advised him to maybe try and blame Diane, but he refused. Said he loved her too much.
Interesting dynamic there.
George pleaded innocent to everything. On July 2, 1991, after about 6 hours of deliberation, the jury came back. A 9-3 vote recommended the death penalty. By electric chair, George Trepal showed no visible reaction to the verdict at all.
Stone cold. This whole case is just a powerful example of the incredible lengths law enforcement sometimes has to go to, isn't it? Especially when dealing with someone so intelligent, so cunning, who genuinely thinks they can outsmart the entire system. It really showcases the dedication needed to take down someone like that.
Definitely. And the story doesn't quite end there. To this day, George Trepal, he's 73 years old now. He remains on death row in Florida's Union Correctional Institution. He keeps filing appeals. None have been successful. He's never been executed. He spends his time reading constantly, and remarkably, he is still a member of Mensa.
Still a member after all this.
Still a member. Diane divorced him 6 years after the conviction. She passed away in 2018 from a stroke. And Peggy Carr, Peggy's husband, He desperately hoped to see George executed, but Peggy passed away in 2020 at age 76. He never saw the justice he longed for. The Carr children. They faced this incredibly complex emotional journey. Some have apparently found a way to forgive George, while others understandably cannot.
Such a long shadow, this crime cast. Decades later.
It really did. Okay, let's just try to unpack this a bit. This tragic story of the Carr family and George Trepal. It's just such a chilling insight into how these seemingly minor personal grievances, when they're fueled by a brilliant but deeply disturbed mind, can escalate into just unspeakable acts.
Absolutely. And this case really underscores the importance of looking beyond the obvious, doesn't it? And how sometimes intellect can be weaponized in the most insidious ways imaginable. What looked like, a series of random, inexplicable illnesses was actually this meticulously planned, calculated attempt to wipe out an entire family. It makes you ask that question, doesn't it? Is there a point where extraordinary intelligence, when it's completely devoid of empathy, becomes an unparalleled threat to society?
Yeah. The whole narrative of George Trepal, this real-life Walter White, it's a stark reminder. The most dangerous individuals aren't always the ones who fit some obvious stereotype. Often it's those whose cunning and intelligence let them operate in the shadows, completely believing they're above ever being caught. And the fact that George Trepal, convicted of such a heinous, calculated crime, still sits on death row decades later, still filing appeals, still unbelievably a Mensa member. It leaves us with this final, kind of provocative thought, maybe. Does true justice always find its final conclusion? Or can a calculating intellect, however twisted it might be, just indefinitely postpone its ultimate reckoning? We really hope this deep dive has given you a fresh perspective on the chilling reality of this evil neighbor case. Until next time, stay curious and keep questioning.